If you know what channel it is, ancestors will use me as a country. So we're going to have some interesting times. So I can't guarantee what I'm going to be talking about when I'm going to be talking about it. I'll give everybody a gift. Ancestral money. We all do rituals in everything that we do. You might not necessarily do it, whether you look at it in a traditional aspect, like if you go to church, but if you're in a BDSM aspect, it's also getting a fish. So right. We've all got our rituals in how we play, how we enjoy stuff, and how we do what we do. If you're a sub, you know the routine of your day. True. Don't worry, there'll be questions and answers. If you have a hand, put your hand up. I'll explain. So, as I said before, my name is Lady Andromeda. BDSM has always been a journey. I'm also a healer. So, I straddle both worlds. Sometimes I don't want to, but I do. We all have our way of doing what we do. Sometimes we don't always necessarily understand why we do what we do. So I'm going to try and help everybody on their journey today in this little half an hour slot that we've got. For me, I am an ancestral healer. So it's like my grandparents are healers, my great grandparents are healers, they're a lot of healers. And I come from very two-star bloodlines. I have traditions of closed practices, Orisha, that kind of stuff. But then I also have root work. So as a West Indian, part of my family are from Barbados, the other part from Jamaica. So in the West Indies, due to slavery and stuff like that, we do a lot of things where we will hide our deities with scent. So we also use traditional herbs and whatever was to hand. And obviously, because of slavery, I have Indian ancestors too. So sometimes some people might see the Kali. Isn't that right? So my dear friend over there, she knows all about me. So we all do rituals in what we do when we're playing settings. Whether we have all our things laid out very neatly, very delicately. For me, I'm going to talk about some of my own experiences when I play, because no two people are the same, and we all have our own individual ancestors, which will protect us, will guide us. Sometimes we'll know stuff and we don't know why we know what we know. You know, we all have that gut instinct, particularly if you're submissive. How many times, who are subs, who are doms? Subs? Anybody ever? Hi, how you doing? I'm sure you'll look at a dom and want to play with a dom, but know that that's not for you. You might start to connect with them and think, actually, nah. Just like our doms, I might get an email from a professional, and I'll be like, you're not for me. So I tend to make sure when I'm doing my own personal rituals regarding my work, I normally ask my ancestors, God, however you define your thing, how you connect to source, to protect me in the rituals that I do. So sometimes I might feel the need to set the intention of a play space where I go into, because I use commercial dungeons, and I'll spray it because I make my own products. So that's always quite an advantage. Or my like incense. You can make your own personal ritual as complex or as simple as how you choose it to be. And I think that's the very thing that's very important. And when we start any kind of ritual, basics, we have to cleanse. Cleansing is something that is so important because you don't want to have energy transfer. You can have any transfer anyway, you know. in whether it's you doing whatever you're doing. But you must always remember, close down your spaces. That is such an important thing, because if you leave your space open, what happens? Problems. And usually me here, muggins, as working as a actual healer, not just as a pro-dom, I have to come with it. So most people know, they know things. You might not necessarily know why you know stuff, but you know stuff. And I think the most important thing is to do, never second guess yourself. If it doesn't feel right, it's actually okay. It's very important to really honor that. Your guides and your ancestors might come and tell you, no, it's not the right time. But you must learn discernment. You know, it is a very integral part of knowing when to go forth into something and when not to. You know, if you're a witch, you know, a lot of you will be like, it's the right time of moon, or no, it's not. Everybody has their way of doing things, and don't feel put off by because you're doing stuff in a way that is no quote conventional, you know. But if it works for you, it works for you. I always am a person, I'm a strong believer of that. So, the money that you have is for you all to burn when you've got some time for someone who you love and care that's not here anymore in a physical way. It's called Josh money. A lot of the ancestors, particularly in China, this is how they honor and venerate people who have passed. Burn it. And think of someone that you love that has passed. So that is my gift to you. Okay? So when I'm doing my rituals in my work, it can be very different. Sometimes I can play in a session and my energy will literally shift. Where I will be beating someone, taking shits out of someone and be really smiling and being very happy and in that good top space. And I can feel my energy shift because I then know that something is going to go on. Sometimes when I first started out, I was quite close to it. I wanted to separate my healing from my domination because I didn't feel that there was my own internal issues going on, where I didn't feel that I was comfortable in expressing that part of me. Because it's a very intimate part of me. But I work with it now. And I found a place of peace with it. And that's what I want to encourage everybody in this room to do. To have that peace, but also to start unpacking the shits. Yeah, I'm not nice. I'll make everybody do work, and I'm going to give you words of encouragement to think about. Because we're all in different spaces, we're all on different frequencies, we're all on different journeys. And that's a very important thing that we all need to know. Don't look scared at me, because I can just see all these eyes looking at me like, oh my God, she's being so serious. No, I like to enjoy my work, because that's how you remember your work, you know? And in sessions, having that ability to hold space for people, I feel I'm very privileged to allow people to really negate and look at self. That is the main reason why we all kind of come into BDSM. We've got issues, but we're dealing with the dark. I deal with the dark and the light, you know? And a lot of people don't want to do the shadow work because it's not nice. Everybody thinks spirituality is, it's love and light. And it's all fluffy and nice. Real spirituality is gully. It's dirty. It's greasy. It's not nice. It's looking at yourself and unpacking it. It's looking at your ancestral shit that you're like, why the fuck am I doing this shit? But if you don't know, it can be quite challenging. And spirituality is also bastardized, especially if you've been in religion or how you may interact with other people, and their culture is different from your culture. It carries a burden. And then also, traditionally, as a West Indian, a lot of us are seers, we're gifted healers. And how we got organized Christianity, it's made us not really look at self and really understand that the Bible is it's a spell book if you use it right. You know, the Quran, it's a spell book if you use it right. You know, Hinduism, same thing. You know, so it's just down to your own interpretations, but also being able to work within that and having that level of discernment. In my sessions when I am playing, and if I do have an experience, I spoke to someone and he was like, yeah, I can talk about this. So I was caning him. He had money issues, and as I'm caning and caning and caning, he burst out and said, "Mommy, I'm sorry." I was like, "Oh shit, then it's gone a bit sideways." Put down the cane. But it's being able to hold that space within that ritual of me going to him like this. It's okay. Mummy, forgive you. I send you all the love and the love it's okay. They're just getting down to be able to connect to someone in that level. It's a very important thing. So, I know loads of you have got lots of things going on in your mind because I can feel it. I'm a bit different like that. So, any more questions? You've not gone all quiet on me. A lot of us need to understand about cleansing. So, I'm going to give you a little take on cleansing. Cleansing is simple. Whether you're just having a bath, a salt bath, and that giving you the tools to just be able to let all the shit that you need to let go of in that bath, let it go. You know, the fact of you putting on your collar if you're submissive, that's your ritual. Look at these two in the corner, just like, yeah, we're gonna have a good time tonight. But it's so important that you also look at the shadow work that you do and really look at all the uncomfortable things that you don't want to look at. It's not nice. Your real people who love you and care for you, whether that be yourself, your dog, your kids, your family, whoever you class, they will give you that safe space to do that. I suggest you do that because it can be very fulfilling. So when you start to do it in your rituals, I have the ability to keep that safe space for that guy. And he felt empowered because it's something that he'd never really divulged in. He never felt comfortable. As I'm sure many of you know, if you've got the right dom, you'll do the most fucked up shit. I think, why the fuck did I do that? But you'd also feel so empowered and enamored by your dom. You know, she'll give you that love and encouragement. She'll push you, or he will push you, to that point of no return. And you get into that space of that taboo and that edge play. And knowing that you're looking on that precipice like, fuck, the fuck did I do this? Us tops sometimes, we think that. And I'll be very honest in that. We'll think, why did I pick this fucking sub? Sometimes I think that about some of my subs all the time. But it's knowing that the connection is there. Because connection is everything. We all know that. We all want to be here in this scene, finding what we need to find out about. Come on, come in. Hold on, go around that way. It's fine. Having that connection and that space in that ritual was always fun. And you can make your rituals as complex or as simple as you choose to, you know? And that's the thing. We all know that BDSM is about what? Choice. It's about our healing, about our nurturing, about our skill set, about our capabilities, of all the things that we can do and want to do at different times of our life. And healing is a thing that it's not just, oh, I'm going to go on a healing journey and watch Uncle Sally you out. Hell no. It's a marathon, it's not a 100-meter dash. Sometimes you're going to go through periods where you don't feel like you need to heal nothing. And then you'll go for a next period where you'll be like, I better do this. And it's also a responsibility to yourself. I'm very much about self. In the words of RuPaul, if you can't love you, how the hell anybody else going to love you? You know? Sometimes we don't always feel that love. Especially being in the culture that we have and being into BDSM. A lot of us might feel guilt and shame. But within the rituals that we do, we can still find that empowerment. And that's a very important thing that we all need to do, be empowered in what we do. And just knowing that you might fix certain things within yourself, but it might not necessarily mean that other people are going to want to fix those things. And just learn to love them and say, okay, and deal with them at the capacity that you feel comfortable in and what they also need. Does that make sense, people? Don't need to make anybody cry. Sorry, because I know that
A question.
Sure.
I want to hear a bit more about what you mean about cleansing, like after a scene or after you've
Both.
communicated something with someone. Or...
Both. Like, scene can be messy work, especially if you've explored stuff that has brought up a whole can of worms. And that cleansing can be something very simple, like when I'm feeling loving to my subs, I'll run them a bath. I'll set them an intention or behind their bath that I want all the negative energy that's got going on for them in that bath, that they feel rejuvenated and feel connected back to themselves and feel empowered. Because that's a very important thing. You know, aftercare is what I do. I have a shop. You might see me quietly just sitting down. Those who come and talk to me, you talk to me. Because that means I know it's the right time for you to talk to me. So I make spiritual products that you can incorporate in your cleanse, in your ritual. Because that's how I like to do things, and I feel that that's also part of it. It's part of your ritual to unwind yourself when you're in that sub or top space. You can get really, really high, can't we? Either way, where you'll be just like pumped, like, yeah, feel good with myself. And then when you get flat, fuck me, do you get flat? And you'll be baseline. You want to just lie down on the floor and think, fuck, I ain't got no energy. And then you want to sleep. And that is the bit about the cleansing of self, where it's very important. And it's simple things. We all do cleanses. You have a bath, don't you? Wash off the day. You know, sometimes we'll go on the underground and be like, fucking energy is bang. Or you'll walk into a space and be like, oh no, I don't like it. That gut feeling that we all know, that we have intuitively and we second guess. Don't do it. Because if there's anything you take from my talk today, gut instinct is everything. That's what keeps you fucking safe. Especially in our scene. Because we know the demons are out there. They're not nice. But sometimes it's good to dance with the demons. Because then you understand an aspect of yourself. The shadow. The things that we fear. And it's about being able to be a ducky conqueror, as us Jamaicans say, which means conquering your fears. So that's why I say about cleansing. It's very important to be able to know what you know. So even if, for example, you're setting your attention and you're trying out your new implements, You can cleanse them. Whether you be using Palo Santo, sage, whether if you're Reiki attuned, you could use your energy. If you're into affirmations or prayer, you can pray over your shit. Why not? It's your shit. It's any which way you feel comfortable in doing what you're doing to be able to cleanse that space or to cleanse that setting. And then you go and have fun. And then your ancestors and your guides will naturally just come in and hold that extra energy. So you're all in a nice little cocoon of a ball that nothing else can infiltrate it. Nothing else can take the energy off that you're in a good space. Because it's very important. And then obviously, once you've finished maybe your play session, to cleanse again, to bring everything back down to that normal three-dimensional space. Where you're just still being regular Joes out here. Any other questions? Everybody's just looking at me. I thought I'd give you lots of talk, but also lots of times to ask questions. No question is stupid, because I know there's some of you in here. You want to ask questions, feel free. I don't bite. I don't feel any question is stupid, because a lot of us might think, oh, you know what, I'm on the beginning of like my journey, and knowing that there's no right or wrong way, or you might go and see things on TikTok, on YouTube, read books, but fundamentally, you still know all the answers within here, within your heart. And then that heart-centered place, that's where I choose to like to work. Not everybody likes to work from this, and that's okay. But that's just my preference in how I like to do my things. Even though I'm completely not a sadist, I'm a happy sadist. I'm always smiling and giggling when I'm fucking shit up. And I'm like, oh, does it hurt? And I'm like, good. Isn't that right, Corella?
Yeah.
That's my partner in crime. When we do double dome sessions, sometimes she looks at me and she's like, I don't know why you're always so smiling. Give me a plastic bag and some poppers. You'll see me like, or give me a strap on and I'll be dicking down everybody.
So I know like you can do these rituals and like this healing practice, and sometimes it's very intentional. So you will have like negotiated and talked through these
Of
things.
course, definitely.
But sometimes things come up for people that you hadn't necessarily spoken about, or that they didn't know would have come up.
Yes.
Like, what advice do you have for people who might encounter that at the time, like as a dom?
It's really
or
a case
dealing with that if you
by
weren't?
it's really a case by case situation. Like for myself as a healer, where a lot of my stuff is, I do crystal healing, I do Reiki, I'm a Reiki attuned, but I'm also, I connect, and I always, my first goal and my first thing that I say when I'm doing any form of session, make sure this is for that person's highest, best regard, not mine, theirs, because I have that responsibility as that top. Sometimes you kind of will gauge it and know when you're in a scene, whether you're going to cut that scene dead and be like, let me actually go and speak to this person. Let me take that care and that tenderness to be like, hang on a minute, what's going on for you? Do you feel comfortable to talk about this? Because sometimes it can be very raw and that person might not be ready to talk to them. And if you know, or if you're working intuitively, you'll be able to you'll be guided, and just relax into it, breathe. Because I know sometimes we'll be all like, shit's going wrong. But just be very grounded and nurturing. And the most important thing is to ask. It doesn't cost nothing to ask. A person can tell you whether they're okay or not. Do you want to talk about this? Because it can be quite rough, And it's also heavy. That's where it goes back to what the gentleman next door to you says about cleansing. Because you can carry that energy and be like, what the fuck? Why do I feel lethargic? Why do I feel tired? Why do I feel like I feel disconnected from myself and I'm not feeling like myself? And that's where you need to be able to take it, maybe a spiritual bath. So that's something in the ways and the traditions that my ancestors operate. We do a lot of spiritual bathing, cleansing in that kind of way, because that's how we just do what we do. Everybody works differently. Like have a shower. You might just go out into nature because it's another form of cleanse. Where getting back to basics with nature, it grounds you and you feel connected. And Mother Earth will be very lovely and take away all bad things. She ain't really happy with us at the moment. That's why we've got lots of shit going on. But here we are. You know? So it's just about no two people are the same. And it's having that level of maturity and discernment. And see where you go with it.
Should we ask a question?
Or she just fiddling with your head.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. It's fine. You can ask your question. You have one.
I was wondering what your thoughts were on repetition in rituals and whether repetition can kind of infuse something a bit more meaning than doing it once might.
Yes.
Whether you have
Definitely.
any-
Definitely. Repetition is always good if you want to reinforce something. You know, the tradition of, for me, I'm very ceremonial when I'm putting on my sub's collar for him, even though it's getting on my fucking nerves right now. But that is the symbol for him that I want him to aspire to. So I'm going to keep reinforcing certain behaviors, certain things that I like him to do for me, because it's about me in how I want to feel, but additionally, he very much likes to serve. And repetition is always good, especially if you've got a person that is either autistic or got ADHD who is neurospicy, because that means that you've got somewhere where they feel safe, and they feel controlled. And it's a way that they don't feel that they don't know what's going on. They don't have that fear. They feel safe. And safety is very, very much a paramount thing. Why I very much like repetition. Any other questions?
As a dom, how do you protect your energy? And I don't know, this is just, I don't know that it's everyone's experience, but obviously while the sub is the one who sets the limits and the boundaries, as a top, it's one of your roles is to kind of play with those and push those, not push,
Yeah, I get what you mean.
play around with them and kind of be aware of where your sub is and be quite attuned to what they're thinking and they're feeling. Because you can't just impose all of your wants and desires onto them. But that's also, in terms of energy, quite a lot of mental energy to kind of be like, how many more can they actually take? And
that goes back to being, because I'm intuitive, so that goes back to me gauging and knowing in a space where you will kind of push, and then you push, and then you push, but then you will know to stop, and how imperative it is to make that person stretch but not break.
But I'm more thinking of from the perspective of the top, how do you make sure that you don't push yourself to breaking? And how do you build in those check-ins with yourself? Because it's very easy to get into the moustache twirling.
I'm very fortunate. My guides will rein me in.
Okay.
Because here and there, as I'm talking, they'll rein me in and they will tell me stop. I very much connect with my guides a lot in everything that I do. But I also know energetically I can go very high, but I also can go very low. So I make sure that how I do my stuff is very linear. So it's in that spiral aspect where I'll just know I need to come back down, because I'm even within myself, I feel too high and low. Ooh, okay. and I get headache. So I know that I will ground down. It might be something very simple where I might spray myself off, or I might light an insect, or I might just take a deep breath in, and I'll be like, wait. And I will just recenter myself. And that's a very important thing that I always do. But that's also because for the 6-7 years that I've really been accepting my spirituality, I now in a place where I know where I can go to and how much. But it goes back to the training and the ritual aspect of it, where I will keep on going, keep on methodically going backwards, forwards, round in that circle, and then I'll be like, stop. I need to stop. And I need to tune in. I need to recenter myself. And that's something that I just intuitively know. Not everybody's going to know that. And I get that. But as the more you play with somebody, you tend to kind of pick up certain vibes from them. And you know within yourself. And I think being a top, we have that responsibility as well to ourselves, to still love ourselves, to still know we have to set our own boundaries when we're dealing with submissives. You know, as much as we might like feeling the adrenaline rush, we still need to be autonomous and self-loving to ourselves too. You know, and yes, that can be hard, but it's also about discipline. We have to be disciplined in everything that we do, you know, just by having that responsibility in play. Because it's not just about us, even though, it is, to an extent. But we also know that it's got to be making sure that ourselves feel in a good space. You know, I'm fortunate that when I go out and play certain times, or if I'm working, if I'm dealing with one of my particular stuff, he will call me and be like, are you okay? Have you eaten? And he does those things that mean a lot to me to make sure that I'm back replenished. So it's a balance. You know, it's a set of scales. Sometimes the son has to give more to his dog. And then there's other times the dog might give more to her son or his son. Any other question? Go. Because you went like that. Did I put you on the spot? I feel like you can't not ask. I'm very much an open book in how I do what I do. And I just feel that everybody should enjoy their BDSM and enjoy their aftercare. Because aftercare is a very integral part of a ritual. Because that's about closing down. That's about unwinding. It's about your sub coming back to their body. Because when you're playing, it's actually a very spiritual thing. Because you know you can get very heady. And you're like, oh. Sorry, I just get excited. And being able to come back to self and grounding yourself in a way that you feel good. And you feel that you're not going to collapse outside. So however you do it, whether it's sugar, whether it's a cigarette, whether it's breathing exercises, it's just those basic things that you incorporate in your daily living. You know, if you're in a relationship and you have like you play a lot, or you do intimate things with yourself, you might just text them and be like, I want to do this, or I want to do this, or assume a position. It's that kind of building that bond, but also you know that you're going to do something quite big at a later date. And it's that anticipation, it's that yearning to bring it up, and then also to communicate it back down. So it's like a heartbeat fundamentally. It's like extreme highs and the extreme lows. But then there's somewhere in between. And that's where we're all kind of like that. Any other questions?
I was going to ask one. We're talking about relationship with dom and subs on your BDSM. If you are a sub who likes to do service, or whatever it could be, maybe verbally, maybe a bit of foot worship, etc. But the impact thing is not a key part of it. Is that a situation that you, Dom, are happy with, or would not prefer not having?
I always say to people to make sure, especially like as a pro dom as an example, a lot of people will look at pictures of doms and be like, I need to serve her, but not really taking that time out to see if your actual skill sets are things that you're both into.
Yeah, it's even a lifestyle dom.
Even if it's a lifestyle dom, I feel like people have to have that level of.
And the sub is quite happy to do that.
Mm.
Drive, clean, bit of worship, as it were, of her as a, but not any BDSM in the sense of we discussed here.
So
Yeah, servitude. So some people would slave. So that's a completely different situation, which I don't know how you would handle that, but it's a different situation to many people who associate the dom sub relationship with some sort of impact.
yeah, I get where you're coming from. So I had to sort of think about it. A lot of people have this. I think porn has a part to play, even though I make content. People think that when you see porn that you're gonna have a wank over, what that is, it's adult entertainment. And I'm very ruthless in the way that I say it. It's adult entertainment. The session and being with someone is a completely different thing. And people need to kind of understand that what you see on film is not actually what necessarily is going to happen
Yeah,
in
I'm
that
talking
session.
about the situation where lifestyle dom wants a relationship, submissive. In terms of controlling, having them available to do things, etc., etc., etc. And it's very often the sub or male sub or fellow, what do you want to call it, may be happy with that. It's where very often there's a change of role in the normal work life. Man may get part of the position. Many women play part of positions, and they may want to change the role rather than they're doing it via a sort of dom sub relationship, but not heavy BDSM.
Yes,
So that is,
in that switch capacity.
yeah, it's a switch capacity.
Yeah.
It's a switch of role. I don't know what your views are about that. It's not something that isn't discussed a lot.
I think that it's down to the own personal preference of said person, and communication is everything. If you're not able to communicate with your partner in a mature capacity, saying what you actually want, because you have to still lay that foundation of what you want to achieve and also review it. Do you know what I mean? You can't just go and jump and be like, yeah, I want this 1 minute and then this another. Everything is always subject to change, just like anything.
Yeah.
You know? So in that, I always say to people, like, maybe if this is your experience, just as an example, that you have like 3 months check-ins to see where you're at, where you're both happy. Is this going the right type of way that you want it to go? In that, and always communicate. Communication is everything, because you're not going to be able to mind read people. Experiences in life has an ability to make things shift and change. You might start out with one situation where you want it as this way, and then you actually, when you're in it, you're like, actually, no, this isn't going to work for me. And being able to go back to that drawing board and be able to just have that healthy conversation. And also have that healthy conversation with yourself, too. Because if you can't have that healthy conversation with yourself, how are you going to be able to communicate that?
Yeah, I think the thing is that I could think of particular dom who basically told me she's not into anything. And she was doing it from the point of view that many subs are possibly assuming that they're in lots of cases pick up somebody who's going to take on a different, more controlling role, get them to do things. punishment to them. But that's the sort of.
But that's about also people needing to be
it's not
honest
quite
with
BDSM,
themselves
it's
and being assertive enough in their submission to feel confident, to feel in a safe space to say, well, actually, this isn't working for me, and really making sure that they find the right type of person for them to make it be a balanced and healthy situation, because then it's a way that you'll be able to pick up a topic. It can go very toxic very quickly, and that's not what you really want to be having to deal with the aftermath of that toxicity.
It's a different sort of relationship.
Yes,
It's not a BDSM relationship.
but there's nothing that's really not conventional because we all do different things for different reasons.
Kink relationship based around a dynamic of control, if you will, not mental control. Protection of the door. Essential combination.
Any other questions? That's it. Sure, no one doesn't want to have any other questions? Speak now, babe, hold speech. No.
Do you sound rituals?
Yes. Sounding is very fun. Very, very fun. In that way that you. It's a journey, isn't it? Sorry. I went a bit and I just had to bring myself back in. You took me to a place of joy. Sorry. With sounding and how you use them in the rituals, it's that point of going from either really, really big or really, really small and making it in that loop setting. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yes?
Did you mean sound like
Yeah.
auditory? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, sound! Sorry! I'm touching it! Like, I'm like, let's put things down there. But yes, God, yes, sound is everything.
This what you said.
That's why I said I went down a rabbit hole and I was like, bitch, bring yourself back. Sound, what you
Go back to your rabbit hole.
We'll be here all day. Sound, God, yeah. Music's everything. Music is everything. We all have our rituals. Like when I'm cleaning, after my sessions, if it's a pro session, listen, I've got my music on and I'm like, hey, 70s yacht rock, thanks, babe. You know, and that's the part of my regime where I will use music in my play sessions, especially if I'm dicking down somebody, because I like strap-on play. And I'll be putting on that 90s R&B, and I will be grinding
Get the
someone.
rhythm going.
Literally. I'll be like this. Just giving them that slow wine. There's many people that have had the slow wine from me. And it's a good time. So music, I think music is one of those things we also take for granted because it can bring us to places of such joy and happiness and also such pain. And it's how we choose to use them. But definitely, I'm a firm believer in having music in your sessions or when you're playing because it makes it fun. It makes it connecting because then when that person, I like to headbutt people, when that person hears that song in the most randomest of places, you know they be thinking about you. And you be like, yeah. And you get that little beautiful text like, I was in the shop and I heard such and such. And it just reminded me of that time. And I was like, that's nice. That's good. So we've all been there where we've heard certain music and we've been like, ooh. Yes. And I think music is a very important part of ritual. You know, like I know for myself, when I'm getting ready to do a session, or even if I'm just playing at home, or I've gone to a sub's house, I will use that element of music to get me into a zone. And that's how I kind of command my energy as well, because sometimes if I'm doing something spiritual, I will pull the energy of the music to cocoon my submissive and myself. so nothing kind of penetrates. So we've got a safe space, especially if we're going to do something and I know it's going to get very sexual. I'm that girl. I like to wind boys up to oblivion or girls up to oblivion and be like, bye, and leave that sexual energy and just be about my way and be like, see them be like, we're not going to do anymore. I'm like, no. Let's just put some music on, you know. And that's something that I deeply enjoy. Music. Music is the foundation of everything. You know, it can make you feel so good, or it can make you feel in places where you feel like, yeah, I never went out, got my heart broke. You know, but incorporate it in within your rituals by all means. It's a very integral part. I'm sure, like, some people have been to TG, and like, if you're seeing people dancing and playing, and you can see them caning or impact playing in certain kind of tones, and you can see them like giving it welly with the beat of the music, that's heavenly. You know, there's many times where you'd be like, oh, look at them. You know, very much a voyeur at times. So, you know, music is very healing. It's very important because sometimes you don't want to necessarily have silence. You know, yes, you want to have the music on to a frequency that you're able to gauge it and know that you can still hear what's going on for your submissive, because that's still important. You know, you don't want to be off with the fairies and be like, oh yeah, this is a tune. You know, I'm gonna have a good dance, and your sub is in some fucked up space. Like, so, you know, that is very important about making sure everything is balanced. You know, like my subs, certain times they'll hear yours, you know, the just because I can, you know, or I'll send them that on a Spotify, like, you know what's coming tonight, yeah? We're on the way, so we're going to have that banter. I'm going to give you that intrepidation because that's what I want to do. I want it to be fun. I don't believe in this whole, I'm not that type of person. I'm sure you've got to kind of gather that. Like, I'm a happy-go-lucky Dom, but even though I'm happy-go-lucky Dom, I'm very fucking sadistic. I can be very cruel. I can be very heartless. I'll cut you dead off and not even think twice about it. You know? But I'll do it for your best highest interest, not mine. I think he's telling me that. I need to shut up. Any more questions?
A simple one. In terms of the rituals, do you find when you're doing sessions that you need to have a structure of what's going to happen? Or do you find it easier to kind of like freestyle it and still be able to have the rituals? Or which one do you think works better for you, and is that different
For me,
professionally or like
everything is a case-by-case situation. No 2 days are the same for me, because I'm spicy. I have this. But I do like my rituals being, depending on what type of day I'm having, it's going to dictate the different type of ritual that I might necessarily do. So, for example, if I'm doing foot fetish stuff, part of my ritual, I'm going to go and get my feet done. I'm going to go and get my toes repainted. Even if I've just gone and got a pedicure, I'm still going to go and get that part because that's part of my end of the ritual. You know, I'm going to make sure that I lotion my feet so soft that my feet feel like air. It feels like silk. So when my sub comes to feel them, I'm like, oh look, I've got your favorite color on today. But then there's other times, if it's going to be like a strap-on play service, it's going to be a different form of ritual, where I'm going to be like, all the dicks lined up on the side of the bed, and I'll be like, so which one of the music are we going to play with today? You know, it depends on what you're into, and that dictates how my rituals are gonna run. I'm going to be very methodical in how I'm going to do it, because if it's their first time I'm taking dick, I'm not exactly going to put fucking 10-inch strap on it. Anyway, so it really does depend on what you're into and how you are going to do what you need to do. You know, even as a submissive, subs still have their rituals. Like, even down to probably if it's a lady, she might be, she'll make sure that she's completely waxed or shaved. You know, his or her owner may like them to be a very specific way. You know, a certain type of aftershave, a certain type of perfume, a certain type of lingerie, if at all. You know, and they know that they're supposed to greet their mistress or master at the door in a specific way. You know, rituals that are as complex or as simple as you choose to make them. And I think that's the one thing that everybody should really understand. You know, we all have our ways of doing things. You know, people be like, oh yeah, it's just it is what it is. I just do it this way. But really, that's your ritual. I want you to own it and be proud of it. You know, because that's how you do what you do as an individual. So there's no right or wrong way to have rituals as well. But the one thing I will say, make sure you close down your rituals. So if you have, like, for example, I have an ancestral altar. I venerate my ancestors a lot. They're the ones that keep me safe. They're the ones that will communicate with me if I need to change something that I might be doing in my session. Like, no, don't do it this way because it's gonna go this way. You know? Well, intuitively, I'll pick up and be like, we're not gonna play with this, we're gonna do this instead. So, a ritual, you can have a borderline, like a skeleton, and then you just add your pattern to the way that you need it to be. But also having that level of respect for your submissive, or if you're submissive in your talk, and having that communication dialogue. Any more questions? God, you stop so quiet. I was expecting like a whole barrage of questions at me, but I hope that I was able to give you some guidance, some advice, and also be true to yourselves. And if you've got any other questions, I'm always here floating around. And if you don't ask, you don't get. So, that's why I ask. I'm a lady, I'm very much like, if you don't know something, ask. No matter how silly it may feel or uncomfortable it may feel, because 9 times out of 10, someone's going to probably be thinking the same shit. I'm lazy, I'm over that.